Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Safety and Health webcast, Tech and OSH, Trending Apps for Safety Professionals, sponsored by Columbia Southern University. My name is Kevin Drewley. I'm an associate editor with Safety and Health magazine, and I will be moderating today's session. Thanks for joining us. In a few minutes, we'll start the presentation, but first I want to go over some preliminary items. The views of today's speaker and organization are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Safety Council or Safety and Health magazine. Any mention of a commercial enterprise, product, or publication does not mean the council or magazine endorses those items. At the end of today's webcast, we will conduct a question and answer session. To ask a question, simply type it in the text box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen and click the button for Submit Question. Feel free to ask your question at any time during the presentation. You don't have to wait for the question and answer session to begin. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but because of the large number of participants today, we might not get to every question. Any unanswered questions will be forwarded along to today's speaker. For basic troubleshooting information, click the Help button located on your screen. At the end of the webcast, you'll be asked to complete a brief evaluation survey. I will let you know more about that after the presentation. This webcast is archived, so you can access it after today's live event. To view this webcast and all of our past webcasts, go to safetyandhealthmagazine.com/events. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Our speaker today will be Ralph Blessing, a Columbia Southern University adjunct professor. Ralph brings more than 27 years of occupational safety and health experience, including in general industry, construction, training, and public speaking. Ralph's career began in the United States Navy, where he served as a base safety officer responsible for the safety of about 5,000 military and civilian personnel. He has a master's degree in occupational safety and health. Again, we thank all of you for tuning into this presentation. Ralph, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, everyone.
This is Professor Ralph Blessing. I'm from Columbia Southern University. And I'd like to welcome you today to our webinar on technology and occupational safety and health. And specifically, the trending apps that are out there for safety professionals that help us improve our results, that help us become successful, that help our employees become successful and the company overall. That are a lot of various types of software out there, as I'm sure you know. Those of you that follow it, that we can use as safety professionals. However, in talking about this software, we're talking about a software or an application that is very specific as to what it can do. One aspect of safety, for example, weather. Weather does exactly what it says it does. It looks at the weather for you. It will notify you of any storms coming in, so on and so forth. It's important, yes, but it's only one aspect of safety. ERG, the Department of Transportation's Emergency Response Guide. You have the NFPA 70E application or NFPA 70E software, which specifically deals with arc flash, which is very important. You have the NIOSH Pocket Guide for Hazardous Materials, Chemical SDS. We have the Pocket First Aid CPO, the OSHA, the HEAT tool, the JSA or Job Safety Analysis or Job Safety Analysis application, the Brady Link 360 lockout tagout, a noise sniffer. We have iAudit, which is very, very common and which I use for just conducting inspections. It's great. It helps you set up your own inspection program, allows you to track it. It comes out of Australia, and it's been around for a number of years, and they've really improved on it, but it's something I would recommend. It's called iAudit or iAuditor, one or the other. And OSHA, of course, has their tools that are available to help you. The OSHA Ladder Safety, the Incident Loss Calculator, so on and so forth. These are all great applications. However, they focus on one specific aspect of safety and not a total encompassing program, which is what we're really looking for. Currently, there's 40 applications for safety professionals. And when I say 40 applications, these are your more robust applications for conducting safety. Okay. Out of these, I went through and I looked at the various safety applications, the total encompassing or all-encompassing safety applications. And I picked the top 10 based on 8 specific areas of what I believe the safety professionals should be looking at or thinking about. One of them is, how is it deployed? How can we use it on the device? And in this case, you have 3 choices. You have the cloud, which has become very common nowadays. You have a computer. And then, of course, we have our smaller devices, iPads, iPhones, so on and so forth. So those are the 3 devices that I was looking for, how we could use the applications on those devices. Then I looked at audit management, corrective preventive actions, environmental management, incident management, industrial safety management, occupational health management, and training management. All of these are very important to a good safety program. Thing is how do we track these? How do we keep track of this information? So that's what I was looking for when it came time to identify the specific software or safety applications I was looking for. All right. So by doing so, the 10 safety applications that I picked that, as you can tell from this spreadsheet, that met most of what I was looking for are EHS Insight, Corrective, Safety Tech, SiteDoc, ETQ, E-Compliance, Spheria, Velocity EHS, HSI, and Safety Indicators. All right. As you can see on the deployment here, you've got a computer, the cloud, or a mobile device. There were 2 of them that, of course, were able to be used on all 3 deployment aspects, and that, of course, was EHS Insight and Spheria. All right. Other than that, you can see the various other aspects of use. And then as we went through audit management, the corrective preventive actions, environmental management, incident management, industrial safety management, occupational health management, training management. You can see most of these 10 applications covered all of them. Now, Spheria did not cover the aspect of training management, which I found to be one of the negatives, and that's why I would stay away from that. And I'm not saying that they couldn't improve on it, but training management is very important, as you know. We have to know when our employees are due for their 3-year recertification on forklifts and their annual or biannual certifications on first aid, CPR, so on and so forth. All right. You can see that under audit management, HSI lacked the audit management aspect, and under your occupational health management, safety indicators did not have a tool within their process or their application to conduct occupational health management. So these were aspects. So the 10 that I chose met these 8 criteria that I was looking for. Out of these 10, there were 3 that I really liked based on, and I'll discuss all the aspects of what I based those 3 on, or the idea or the attitude of gravitating toward using these 3 software. This was based on industry standards and reading about different companies, some of the major companies that used it, why they liked it. The first I'd like to talk about is SiteDoc. This was probably one of the most utilized softwares out in the field by some of the largest companies. All right. Now, one thing I will say about this, I did not get all the financial aspects of it, but SiteDoc for a enterprise, if we want to call it an enterprise, or a multi-user license, could cost you up to about $36,000 a year, depending on the total number of employees. And I think $36,000 was for 100 employees that were using the software. That's quite a chunk of money, and that's why I mentioned a lot of the larger companies use SiteDoc. You can access and manage your entire safety program from a web browser, and this is any web browser. Your Internet Explorer, Chrome, all the different web browsers that are out there. This software is multi-capable of being able to use those various software. whether you're at the office, at a hotel, in your vehicle, coffee shop, wherever, you'll have instant visibility and control over safety activity from every single job site or for every single job. Okay? And when we talk about this, as I mentioned, the robustness, the use of the software, looking at reports and analytics, which is very important for safety professionals. Not so much the what has transpired, right? But we want to be proactive and not reactive when it comes to identifying analytics. We can see trends on incidents, injuries, etc., which of course is a reactive method. We can track worker engagement. We can see problem locations at a glance. For example, if you're doing whether we want to call it a dot matrix, using a form that has where you can place dots over where your incidents occurring. Of course, where you have the most dots is what you want to focus on. That sort of trend, right? Problem locations at a glance, and then track frequency of form submission. What forms are being submitted? What has to be submitted daily, weekly, so forth, and how are they being done so? And you can use the software SiteDoc to find out. Real-time monitoring. See every form signed at every job site in real time. So every time it's signed, your computer automatically updates. Improved accountability for workers to fill out required documentation. Quickly see critical forms that require your immediate attention. For example, near-miss reports, incident reports, etc. Automatically file and organize. Quickly find documents sorted by document name, location, worker, and date sign. Very important. I mean, we all remember the old days where we had to go through tons and tons and reams of paper to try and find something. Now everything can be done or accomplished on a computer, on the cloud, on a mobile device, right? Using smart search, much like having Google. Just type in the name or whatever it is you're looking for. It will go in and monitor or go in and find it in a database. The quick and easy form builder. Convert all of your paper forms to digital files with the drag and drop form builder. This is why I like Auditor, because you can drag and drop and build your safety or your safety inspection program quite easily. The drag and drop process is very good, very simple to use. Create custom lists for drop-down selectors within your forms. Bulk uploads of PDFs to a resource library, which of course includes your safety data sheet, safety manual, job safety procedures, safe work practices, company policy, anything along that line that can help you or your employees be successful. Monitor worker training and certification. See which worker certificates have expired or are expiring soon. Advanced filtering and grouping for live certification reports. Both these are very important. We want to know at all times which operators or which of our employees have a certificate that needs to be renewed immediately or needs to be renewed within a few months. We can add locations in here, custom locations for each of your projects, assign specific workers to those locations. We can work on worker profiles, adding worker details, emergency contacts, and more, adding their certificates. And that's very important. If you've got your worker, a welder, or a torch cutter, or something along that line, making sure that they have all necessary certificates to complete their job. And it's important that we realize it and we understand it and we're able to immediately gain access to that. Because as many of you realize that have been through OSH inspections, although compliance officers tend to be reasonable, there comes a point where they finally throw up their hands. If you've got available right there on your phone or on a computer, you're definitely going to stand out. And chances are they may not want to come back. We just talked about SiteDoc. Now we're going to talk about ETQ services. Costing is about the same, so I'll say costing is about the same for all of these. Very expensive for a large number of users, a little more reasonable if you maintain your users to a certain level. In this case, ETQ Services Health and Safety Management provides the operational level capabilities to manage workplace health and safety, from recording accidents, injuries, and illnesses to managing your crisis management program. ETQ provides best practices best practice capabilities to automate your health and safety programs, allowing you to spend more time on controlling hazards and preventing incidents. Wow, what a statement. Controlling hazards and preventing incidents. More time to do this. This is like a dream come true for most of us, right? We never can find the time to actually be able to control the hazards or prevent incidents from occurring because we're so busy in the office, doing paperwork, meetings, and so on and so forth, right? Now we have the capability of being able to have that available on the job, as we're walking around. Within that, aspects, objectives, targets, what is we're focusing on, where we're focusing on, permit controls, behavior-based safety, great process. We can automate our behavior-based safety program, corrective actions, document controls, employee training, compliance obligations with or without regulatory content integration, industrial hygiene, emergency planning and preparedness, incidents, accidents, safety reporting, job safety analysis, management of change, monitoring inspection, safety data sheet. These are all very important aspects of our day-to-day safety. And so we're able to have this available to us, which allows us to get into the field. We don't have to worry about paperwork back at the office because we're taking it with us, something we can do in the field. Now, you notice at the bottom I talk about environmental management, incident management, risk management, regulatory compliance management. These are aspects that can be added to this specific application. Last, we're going to start talking about e-compliance, the last of the three software applications that I felt were probably the best to look at when it comes to overall good safety capabilities or safety software capabilities that meet the criteria that I was looking for at the time. E-compliance gives management 360 real-time view into safety performance and helps facilitate two-way communication between on-site employees and in-office management. On-site employees and in-office management. Using e-compliance, we can identify hazards. Using the mobile app, you'll be able to quickly identify hazards by taking a picture and annotating it in real time. Okay. Take a picture, annotate it real time, it automatically takes it and puts it into your data. Assigning corrective actions. Be able to immediately assign a corrective action to any member of your staff. This will alert your colleague immediately and ensure the right controls are in place. Basically, if you have a problem or an incident that has occurred or may occur, and we see that we can take some sort of action, corrective action, then that's what we do. We assign a corrective action to a specific member of the safety team, and they will take it. But it's an immediate response once we assign it, or once we make a note of it and save it and assign it. Lastly, on this page specifically, check the status actions items. We've assigned individuals within our safety team action items or corrective actions. Now we can follow up with that. Take a look at a detailed view of any or all the action items assigned to you or others at the level of your organization. Check their status and accept or reject them as soon as they're assigned. Okay. Complete incident reports. Quickly and easily complete incident reports directly from your device and submit them to sign off. All right. How great is this? Go ahead and do it right at the job site, and then it will go back and be signed off. Now, I'm not saying I totally agree to this because I personally believe that it requires a large amount of time to conduct a good root cause analysis, if you want to call it, or incident analysis. This is not something that can be done quickly. It requires time and effort. Document your EHS meetings. Using the meeting form, you'll be able to take meeting minutes, assign appropriate corrective actions, and sign up on your job health and safety meeting at any time. Once again, how great is this? Everything is done at the job, at your meeting. Immediately when the notes are taken, everything is done, and any assignments have been assigned. Then immediately upon saving it, it will go into your database based on your criteria and send the appropriate email messages to those parties that are responsible for certain aspects of that safety program. Continue to work offline. This is a great program. If you don't have internet access at a specific site, the e-compliance app will still allow you to complete your safety activities, automatically sync once you do. So let's say we go into a field, we've lost internet connectivity, but we can still call everything up, do everything that's necessary on the software capability, and then go back to wherever. And if internet access is available, then the computer, if you have it turned on, will automatically access that internet and will automatically send out the reports and necessary paperwork based on what is built into that software. Leading indicators to help reduce the risk. If you're looking for a better understanding of how you can prevent incidents and injuries from occurring in the first place, e-compliance enables your management team to download automated key KPIs or key performance indicator matrix and view comprehensive dashboards. So basically, this is a way for management to observe or to identify whether you are or not doing your job based on your KPI. Okay, it's available to them, and it's definitely something we want to look at when it comes to reducing the risk that we or that our employees are exposed to on a daily basis. Training reports that aren't in Excel. I'm not much of an Excel user. I like Word better. So let's get away from Excel if we have to. But training reports, rather than managing employee training and retraining dates in Excel, e-compliance will automatically send reminders to your workers when their training is about to expire. Amazing. So when they get the training, we train a class of 20 personnel. Let's say on forklift. 2 years, 11 months, and 20 days down the road, automatically the computer system will automatically send out a notice to them, a reminder saying, hey, in 10 days, 11 days or whatever, you have to complete or you have to start your training for forklift recertification. Or let's say first aid, CPR, confined space, fall protection, whatever it is. If you do this correctly, your database, if you control your database correctly, then a message will go out to the employees that they have to do their recertification. Introducing KPIs for work participation engagement. Once again, how do we track whether our employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing, whether the workers are doing what they're supposed to be doing? Worker engagement and safety is critical but rarely measured in most organizations. Now we can measure your workforce on a multitude of safety activities, including action items, attendance at meetings, behavior-based forms, and much more. So turning in your BBS forms at the required turn, 10 a month. Well, it's very difficult to try and get your forms all the time, documented, so on and so forth, unless you have a fairly large safety and health department. So in this case, by using your cloud or by using a computer, by using a mobile device, it automatically puts that into the system without you having to worry about it. Enabling two-way communication for workers and management. How many times do we hear from our employees or our workers in the field that they don't see management? Is management really involved in safety because they don't see management? Management is so busy with their day-to-day operations that they just don't have an opportunity to get out there. So this is a good way for workers to see that management actually is involved in safety by seeing a lot of these reports come out on their clouds or their computers or their mobile devices. Making safety company-wide. Rather than just engaging in your safety team, you're able to provide key people in the organization with a bird's-eye view of safety performance at any time with comprehensive dashboard. You can view the performance by level in your organization, division, region, site, department to drive safety accountability and action. This is very good for management to understand exactly how and where their safety program is going. Is it being used correctly? Are they getting the real results, or is something being done? So this is a great aspect of this software, which I really like. So as I mentioned, there are over 40 applications out there. And the idea here was to pick 10 that I felt met the 8 criteria that I had chosen. And based on that 8 criteria, I went through and pulled 10 specific software applications for safety, the overall robust safety programs. And out of those 8, I picked the 3 that were most commonly used, most widely accepted, based on large companies using the software. As I mentioned, they are all fairly costly when it comes to having them and maintaining them on site or in your buildings or your location. All right, but I think overall the cost is well worth the headaches that you as a safety professional, your employees, and management has to face on a day-to-day basis. More and more managers are being held accountable for safety. It's no longer safety's sole source or sole responsibility to do things like this, but now management members, senior or upper management personnel are being held more accountable to ensure that the numbers are being done correctly, that the reports are, or that the numbers are being reported, so on and so forth. All right? So I guess here the opportunity now is, what questions do you have for me concerning safety applications, trending in safety applications, and where it may be going? I can tell you they're improving on it quite rapidly, and much like anything any day, you buy a computer and next week it is it's outdated, it's antiquated. Your software is changing so rapidly. The capabilities within computers are changing so rapidly. So these are things that are going to happen. So without further ado, I'd like to have any questions that you may have out there, and we'll answer them to the best of my capabilities and help you get to where you want to be.
Excellent. Great job, Ralph. Thanks for your insights and expertise. Before we do start with the Q&A, just want to remind everyone of the evaluation survey that we're asking you to complete. The survey should be appearing on your screen now. Your input is important because it'll help us improve future webcasts. If you don't happen to see the evaluation survey on your screen, please turn off your pop-up blocker. You may also access the survey by clicking the survey button near the lower right part of your screen. And then just speaking of that lower part of the screen, I know we're getting some questions coming in, but just a reminder to folks who would like to submit one there, you just click the Q&A button near the lower left portion of your screen and write the question out and submit it. So with that, again, we thank you, and we will get to your questions. The first one, are there any apps that you would recommend avoiding?
That's a great question. And I'd hate to say yes, and I'm not trying to be, push backish at all, I guess. Because I think all apps have a positive sense for safety. I really do. It just depends what you're looking for. What is going to complete your task or help you complete your task? And that's what I would recommend. Definitely look at all the different apps that are out there, the positive, the capabilities of those apps and how they fit into your organization financially and operationally, and ensure that they meet your requirement that you have with management to keep your employees safe. That's all I can say, but specifically, I could not pick any one or anything like that. No, sorry.
Next question. What app do you think is most beneficial for a consulting company to purchase?
I would look at something more robust, SiteDoc, something along that line. For the management, I would look at SiteDoc. Very robust. I think it would help you, and it would definitely help guide you. And I think that's what I'm more looking into is what can guide you along the way, and they kind of keep you on track. So I would recommend SiteDoc, my personal opinion, and I guess that's what I would work with if I was in that situation or had that opportunity.
What apps do you recommend for those who are new to safety? I
would look at Auditor. the one that I briefly talked about, comes out of Australia. The thing I like about Auditor, and I turn on a lot of the newer safety managers and safety professionals. I don't want to call them professionals, but the people that are involved in safety for the different companies that I consult with. I would look at using Auditor because, first of all, you have access to a library that's just immense, and they have in there all these different companies that have developed safety audits, and they're all available to you. You can go through and make changes to it, make it your own, and that's what I like about the library. Is huge with all different types of every type of industry out there that deals with any sort of safety issues or that. That's what I would recommend. Auditor. It's a great learning curve. It kind of helps keep you on track because you're looking at what other safety professionals are using, and it kind of gives you a good idea of where you want to go, or it helps you improve. I mean, you may want to change that form. You have the capability to change somebody else's auditing form or auditing program, and I love it. I mean, it's a great program. It's called Auditor.
Next one, in the deployment cells, what is meant by C, CLO, and MOB?
Okay, C is a computer, CLO is cloud, and MOB is a mobile device, iPad, iPhones, Android devices, things like that.
What are your thoughts on the top contractor safety management companies?
Ooh, I think I'm not trying to shy away from that, but I just soon stay away. I'm not an all-knowing when it comes to the top contractor safety or the management companies and that. There's some good ones out there. I know that. They definitely, I want to say, pick the cream of the crop, but you always have to be careful with one of these, what you're investing in. There can be companies out there that sell themselves as being the best, and I think a lot of them want to believe that, and you find that you're not getting the service you paid for. But that's all I'll say about that. That's not it's a great question, but it's not something I would want to jump out there and answer to.
Sure. Next one just is backtracking to when you discussed e-compliancy. Wanted just to ask what the cost was for that and any additional thoughts about it.
Well, I don't know the exact cost. As I mentioned, it depends on the users you've got involved. I know all of those are they can be pretty expensive. Of course, you have to look at the what it costs for the companies to develop the software and to maintain them and to improve on it and so forth, and then the aspect of cloud computing and databases and so on and so forth. So they are robust, but you're going to pay for that robustness. It's just like Word documents and so on and so forth. And it depends how many users you've got. A normal safety department, if you've got a 10 or 20 person safety department, chances are you can get away real reasonable. One thing here is, as I always say, you can't there is no return on investment when it comes to safety. And I know a lot of managers want to think of that. $1,000 investment in safety can be just as good as a $1 investment in safety. It's not the amount of money, but it's just how much management believes that safety pays at the end.
What are the risks with going to an application approach? Any concerns about availability or cybersecurity?
Good question. There are a lot of companies out there that tout the fact that that they're cloud-based and they have a top-of-the-line cybersecurity program and that. I mean, if the NSA and the Pentagon can get hacked, I guess that would probably answer your question. Nothing nowadays. There's nothing out there that is completely safe. Every day, cyber attacks are more robust, and the cyber attackers are learning more and more ways to infiltrate, I guess, your systems and that. Just be careful. Talk to your legal team about what you can put on the cloud. Some things I may stay away from when it comes to cloud storage and maintain it on your local computers. But I think overall safety audits, things like that, I don't think there'd be a problem with those being on the cloud.
Have you come across any good environmental incident reporting applications that include simultaneous notifications to multiple users from a single phone call initiation?
That's a great question, and unfortunately, I cannot say that I have. Unfortunately, I'm sorry about that, but I can't say that I have when it comes to environmental issues, spills or releases or things like that. Maybe SiteDoc, one of those. They might be able to do it. You may have to deal with the companies themselves, the developers, and see if they could add that into one of their other additions that they've got. Some of them do have multiple additions you can add on, and talk to them about something along that line.
Next one comes from someone who identifies themselves from a smaller manufacturing company and just asked, what about those kinds of companies who might have a smaller budget but still offer similar options? What would you advise there?
I would definitely advise iAuditor. iAuditor, as I mentioned, great, robust. The first user is free. After that, it's not much at all. And as I said, I mean, you can go in there and look at the library of all the different auditing tools they've got available, the tracking tools, so on and so forth. I mean, that is something really to start with. And once you develop a good auditing program using iAuditor, if you want to go more robust, then look at investing in some of the bigger ones. But iAuditor, I would definitely look at for a small new startup or something along that line, or even a company, let's say, of less than 50 people, and you want to maintain the OSHA compliance with the 300 and 301, your reporting and so on and so forth. Use iAuditor. I definitely recommend it.
What recommendations do you have on in-depth industrial hygiene tracking applications?
Once again, that's a great question, but unfortunately, I could not. I don't know that when it comes to industrial hygiene, which software would be good to do the tracking and so forth. I would look at iAuditor again. I mean, maybe I'm just beating iAuditor to death here, but as I mentioned, iAuditor is very robust, and it's drag and drop. There's so much you can do with it. Try that. I mean, it's very versatile, and there, like I mentioned, there's already a huge library of different industries that have put stuff in there, and maybe the IH side would be included in that.
I'm not trying to lead you into another, maybe you might mention iAuditor again, but this one asks, what's the best app for reliability calculations, MTBF, FPMH, etc.?
Oh, yeah. Mean time between failures and stuff. That's a good point, and I was going to mention something here. There's a couple new software programs I've been looking at. One of them is called Red List, and that might be something along the line. It deals with equipment maintenance, predictive, preventive maintenance, JSAs for equipment and that. Red List is the software, and it focuses more on the equipment, heavy equipment side, so on and so forth. And maybe that's something to look at because it guides your mechanics when it comes to predictive and preventive maintenance. So that might be something to look at when it comes to the MTBF, the mean time between failure and so forth. Red List might be something that you want to look at. I've looked at it. I like what they offer. But that's more focused on the preventive side, dealing with equipment and so forth, preventive predictive maintenance and heavy equipment operations and the tracking of job safety analysis and helping mechanics keep them in track from a safety point of view and the maintenance aspect. So that might be a good one called Red List.
What apps stand out regarding their ability to provide updates and to provide those updates frequently?
I would say SiteDoc is definitely, I might pick on, like I pick on iAuditor. Definitely think about SiteDoc. ETQ would be another good one. That's what I would recommend. I mean, but as I mentioned, in looking at the top 10 that I had picked, and then picking those three, I would favor any one of those three when it comes to the robustness and so forth.
Again, you've spoken a lot of iAuditor. This one asks, are there any applications you've listed that would be the equivalent to iAuditor?
Not really. I mean, iAuditor is, as I mentioned, is a good beginning. The robustness of the library, none of the others have that. The capability to reach into a library of all these different audits that everything from auditing an office to auditing a power plant. It's all available. Where the others don't have that, you have to develop that all yourself. No, when it comes to comparison in that aspect, no, I really couldn't see that.
What were the average costs of the apps that you discussed, and are there annual upgrade fees?
Well, as I mentioned, from what I can remember and looking back, they were all probably pretty much the same up in the, depending on the number of users, and I want to say if you had 100 users, and I'm not exactly familiar with when they talk about users, if there's 100 individual, and I would like to believe that's 100 individual licenses, they got up in the tens of thousands of dollars. And the annual maintenance fees definitely wouldn't be as much after you purchase the initial licenses, but there's still going to be a high cost dealing with annual renewals, much like Microsoft Microsoft support and so on and so forth. You're paying for the upgrades and anything else that happens when it comes to that software.
How can these apps be utilized by employees who prefer not to use their personal device for work-related purposes? Might companies start issuing devices?
I don't think there'd be a problem. I mean, as long as your company is providing as you mentioned, their own computer, iPads, iPhone, or something like that, there's not a problem. You should be able to download a shortcut into your work devices and utilize it there. I mean, you don't have to utilize it. In fact, I would highly recommend you don't ever use your own personal devices when it comes to company information, especially when it comes to accidents, audits, or so forth, because those personal devices can now become, in a court of law, could now be seized by the court because they have information on it that might be useful in some sort of court action. So definitely keep your own personal devices out of your work unless you're willing to lose it.
All right. Next one, can you show any trend documents for some of these top apps that you've discussed?
Trend documents. With time, I could probably go back through and if somebody's interested in that, we could definitely pull the trending on the different docs if that's what they want. Yes, I don't think that'd be a problem.
Okay. Well, no, yeah. Hopefully they're listening. And as we said, folks, at the top, Ralph today will be looking at these questions. So something like this or any that go unanswered, he'll be able to respond to. So that sounds good on that front. Next one, were there any other platforms that were looked at or excluded for some reason? They list Gen Suite and Intellex that come to their mind as potential solutions that meet some of the needs that were discussed. So I guess they're asking any other platforms that are out there that may not have been mentioned.
Yeah, I know. I mean, definitely. I mean, those that, like I mentioned, there's about 40 that were all dealt with different aspects of safety auditing. And inclusion into occupational safety and health. And I just picked the top 10 that I did because of the robustness, what they offered in that. But, I mean, definitely there's a lot of them, as mentioned, Intellex, so on and so forth. I couldn't even remember all 40 of them that were out there at the time that I started doing the investigation or the background checking into all the different software out there. There are, as I mentioned, 40 of them. At least 40. I mean, there's probably more if you really did a big search. And there's a lot now coming out of the United Kingdom, out of Europe, software coming out that's out there and available. And one of them I just happened to think about is something called Stay Safe, Lone Worker Solutions. And this is I found more along the oil and gas industry side. Where you've got workers that are deployed by themselves, even electrical, electronics and so forth, that are deployed by themselves, and they're able to use their cell phone, and they check in with the companies in this, and if there's an issue, They can set off an alarm that they need assistance. Of course, it's GPS tracked. Immediately, assistance can be dispatched to them. If there's no movement at all after so many minutes, and you would base that into the software itself. If there's no movement at all, for example, the person may have fallen or was knocked out or passed out after a certain time frame, an alarm would sound once again at the dispatching facility or the monitoring facility, and they would dispatch to the GPS coordinates medical help. So, that's one of those things called stay safe. But there's a lot of good, and this comes out of United Kingdom, out of England, and there's a lot of good software out there. I mean, they're coming from all over the world because the safety industry is we know this is a huge industry, and anybody that has an employee has a safety program, robust or even a small one. But mom and pops, all of them have safety programs, and they all require some sort of assistance or help when it comes to maintaining their levels of as required by OSHA.
Speaking of OSHA, someone asked, is there an app for OSHA standards and regulations, a place to look something up on your phone on the go?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, there are a number of those, and I think I mentioned that at the beginning, and I'd have to go back and look at my notes. But you can go to OSHA.gov, the website, and check into all the different software that they offer. But there's a number of different companies out there that do have the OSHA, that you can get all the OSHA standards on your cell phone and just or iPad and quickly type in what you're looking for. Let's say electrical safety or fall protection or scaffolding or whatever, and it automatically will show you all the different standards that deal with that specific topic you're looking for. Most definitely, OSHA has come a long way in the years that it's been around. I mean, it's amazing.
Next one, how can I get contact information for the app developers to learn more about the product?
Just go do a search, and I mean, do a search online for the companies, for example, SiteDoc. It'll take you to their website or give you an opportunity to actually connect into their website. I would just do a search on that, or just do safety software. Do a search, Google search on safety software, and a lot of different developers will come up on there and just start looking. A lot of times you'll find that they have a short blurb on exactly what their software is about, and I would just go ahead and contact them or send them a note. And a lot of them will offer you a free access, like maybe 2 or 3 days or 10 days or 30-day access to their software to test it, and if you're interested, then they'll follow up with you to allow you to purchase it.
How well do any of these programs track ISO 45001 efforts?
They're going to have to go through some upgrades when it comes to ISO 45000, and I think it's not an immediate thing that's going to happen, but a lot of the software companies are going to have to start changing their software to come into compliance with some of the new standards that are out there.
Do any of these apps allow for a trial period before jumping into a commitment?
Yes, they do. I would contact the company, as I mentioned. Some of them have, I don't think it's just 1 day. Probably I'd say at the most a 10-day. The minimum of 10 days, the most maybe 30 days, but a number of companies do offer that. Red List, I know, has that ability. I think SiteDoc does. There were a number of companies that you can contact, and they will allow you to maybe have a single user license, and it may be not the full-blown software, but definitely allow you to go out and test it and to make a decision if that's something you really want to purchase or not.
What app would you recommend for a mechanical contract company that works in healthcare?
Auditor. I push back on Auditor. Having worked for a major mechanical contractor down in Georgia for years as a corporate safety director in that, we did a lot of hospital work, infection control, things like that. Auditor was great because, as I mentioned, you can go in and actually look at some of the Joint Commission auditing programs out there and employ that into yours. iAuditor is, I hate to say it, but is my go-to when it comes to immediacy and the what's out there that you can go ahead and use somebody else's auditing process and copy and paste those questions, put it into your program and utilize it. I mean, it's a great program. If you don't want to invest in something, or a large investment, I'm sorry, if you don't want to have a large investment, I would use iAuditor for something like that. That's what I used for the mechanical contracting company that I work for.
Again, we're not trying to turn you into a broken record, but we've got another recommendation question. This one, they're in risk management for a city of 350,000, and just we're looking for a good app or KPI to use.
Oof. I would go with one of the more robust SiteDoc. One of those I would use for something like that big. The capabilities that they have, because when you're talking something that large, you definitely need a database, a larger database. You definitely have to be able to do a better search, historical data, trending, so on and so forth. So SiteDoc, or one of the three that I discussed, would definitely be one that I would recommend in that instance.
Are there any apps that are designed to get more, or not necessarily designed, but that might get more employees involved in safety culture?
Not these apps. Trying to think of a good app that would get employees involved in safety culture. Well, I keep saying this word here, iAuditor. You could look at it, the behavior-based safety side. They do have some good within their library. They do have a good behavior-based safety auditing process in there, where you can drag and drop or pull questions out of there that your employees could use to help guide them. That's what I would recommend, because it's robust, but at the same time it's simple to use. It's easy for employees to use. And then they can print it out and submit it however they want to do that.
Is the program DAA transferable or savable if the use of the software stops?
Good question. Unfortunately, I do not know that. I do not know that. I'm sorry.
Next one, should safety lead the training program or training lead the safety program?
What a question. My mantra, and it was written on the side of my truck, is safety begins with education. So let's just put it that way. Safety begins with education. Training, you have to understand safety before you can teach it, but at the same time you have to learn about safety before you can develop the training side. So that's the proverbial, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
All right. Next one, the regulations that are addressed in the apps that you discussed, such as iAuditor, are those all based on federal OSHA guidelines?
Oh, yes. Sure. Yes. Most of them are. They could be ISO, they could be ANSI, they could be ASHRAE. Whatever you want to look at. The individuals that are actually developing their auditing tools and putting it into the library that iAuditor has, that you have access to once you get an account with them, most of those are definitely standards that are developed from the OSHA guides or any of the federal guidelines, or the World Health Organization even has. Some people have some issues in there with some auditing tools from the World Health Organization, and from the industrial hygiene side, the American Congress of the Government Industrial Hygienists, so on and so forth. But there's you have to look at this. It's called iAuditor, and the library is immense. It's just immense what you have access to. But they're all based on standards and guidelines, and if you don't like which one's on there, you can always change it, go in and put your own on there.
And then as a follow-up to that, and maybe it dovetails with what you're saying about the library, can you set the iAuditor app for just using, for instance, the Cal OSHA guidelines on their inspection checklists?
you could go through and do a search maybe in the library for Cal OSHA, and it would go through and look at any of the auditing tools that may have the name Cal OSHA in it. But other than that, I think you would have to go through and just look at the different audits or in the library, the different audits that have been developed or designed, and see if they fit within the Cal OSHA process or not.
Again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of recommendation questions, but this one asks what's recommended for a ground transportation company, specifically a busing, they say.
Once again, my favorite, Auditor.
Okay.
Easy, simple, probably a library, something already out there. I can almost guarantee you that deals with transportation, National Highway Transportation, the Safety Board or administration. I'll guarantee you that somebody has already developed or designed an auditing program out there for busing companies or for school districts or trucking companies. It's already out there. I can almost guarantee it.
Another question is asking about the all-in-one software, and just note the expense about it, and ask just how would you kind of weigh the pros and cons of that? Or is it better to maybe go for a more expensive all-in-one app, or to get several apps that are good at what they do?
Well, no, I think I would go with one company. I know, if you look at, and I talk about the old days, let's say and I hope I'm not dating anybody out there when it comes to saying the old days, but the 60s and 70s, and it's like buying stereo equipment, where you bought a Pioneer receiver and you bought a TAC reel-to-reel, and they were always different, and you never bought one system together, because let's say if your reel-to-reel went down, then you lost your whole system. Of course, saying that, I'd like to purchase or have deal with one company when it comes to software, because now I only have to deal with paying one bill and always making one call to one person. But if you have 4 or 5 different softwares that are using for different aspects of your management, your safety management program, whether it's your industrial hygiene, your environmental, your safety auditing, and so forth, you have to call all different companies. Yeah. So, all right.
Okay. Well, no, you've been thorough. Is there anything left unsaid, or I know you mentioned Auditor, and addressed various components, but or actually, I'm sorry, we've got another one coming in. Do the developers' free smartphone apps offer positive services similar to having the purchased account access?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we've got time now for one more. Can most safety software link to HR software systems for importing employee information?
Oh, that's a good question. It would all depend on what your HR software or your HR database is. Is it a SQL database? I mean, you'd have to contact. I guess first of all, you'd have to know what your HR software database is, what it's based on, and then take a look at, contact the company, one of these other software companies, and ask them about that. And they may be able to build some sort of link in there that they could pull the required data from, let's say, a SQL database. I mean, I'm not saying it's difficult. Nowadays, it's pretty simple to build something along that line, to where they just say, okay, go in and look at, line so and so and so forth, and pull that out and incorporate it into my safety form. Like a relational database, I guess, if you want to call it. But that I would contact them to make sure. But as of right now, I don't think there's any SiteDoc, any of those, unless they have to know what your HR software is before they could even start talking about that, because that's just not something that you can just pull out of the hat type of thing.
Well, again, Ralph, thank you. I know we covered a lot of good ground in this Q&A. Fortunately, though, we have run out of time. We're sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions, but all of today's unanswered questions will be forwarded along to our speaker. Once again, hope you take the time to fill out the evaluation survey on your screen to give us your feedback. That ends today's Safety and Health Magazine webcast. We'd like to thank Ralph Blessing, everyone at Columbia Southern University, and all of you who listened in. Thanks, and have a great day.